Okay, so I did a preliminary lesson or lesson number one, focused on technique, warm up, and some major scale exercises. And I think it's helpful because I only demonstrated those in one key, and I didn't really spend a lot of time talking about other key signatures and especially fingering for major scales and other keys. And so, what I'm going to do now is demonstrate how I would practice the stuff that I taught in the first lesson. And it could be a long video because there's a lot to get through. And that leads to an important conversation about the nature of practicing and how to approach it. I think a lot of musicians approach practicing in a suboptimal way. I know I did for many years. And what I mean by that is practicing is dedicated focus on removing any obstacle to your ability to create music. And so that could be physical. In many cases, it is. It could be um, conceptual. So practicing can involve reinforcing theoretical concepts. Um, in many cases, it's a combination of both the physical, the analytical. It's also the practice of taking incremental steps and mastering one thing before moving on to the next. And this is where musicians get tripped up a lot of times. I did for many years, especially when it came to piano. For some reason, when I learned drums, and maybe I had gotten a lot of that playing out of my system, or what I perceived to be playing at a level that was sufficiently satisfying artistically or music or creatively as a drummer, so that when I was practicing, I really did have the discipline to stick to the exercises and not get distracted by ending up just jamming for half an hour and calling that a practice session. With piano, because I started later and because of the overwhelming amount of information and things that I had to master or that I knew I wanted to master or even expose myself to, um, it felt quite overwhelming. And so what I tended to do was have no plan when I would sit down to practice and just pick away at little things, but never see anything through to completion. And when I say completion, I mean see it through to an effortless mastery of the exercise. And so a very simple example would be the C major scale. Believe it or not, not that long ago, like less than a year ago, I started really practicing the piano for the first time in this way, in a focused, um, in a disciplined and intentional way. That the goal was, this is the time I'm setting aside to do this. Therefore, I'm not going to play things that sound good so that I feel good about myself as a musician. I'm going to play things that sound bad. And ultimately, at times, it makes you feel bad about yourself as a musician. But only by doing that do we actually improve and address the gaps in our playing. And if you do that consistently, and if you do that with the right attitude, you can actually enjoy the process immensely. So I had trouble, again, believe it or not, I had trouble just playing a C major scale with the proper fingering through, if you watch the first lesson, I had trouble at first playing that very slowly. I think I was on 60 beats per minute at eighth notes, playing it slowly and accurately with both hands, staying relaxed, ensuring the fingering was correct throughout the whole exercise. I would always find myself landing back at C with the wrong finger, um, and I would have to stop sometimes and really think through, where do I cross over? What note is happening now? How do my fingers relate to each other? Which notes are they on? And to some people that would be very frustrating, and maybe they wouldn't have the patience for it. And I know I certainly would have put myself in that category many years ago, or not even that long ago, less than a year ago, let's say, um, at times. And but now I've learned to enjoy the process because I know how effective that is at creating results. So we're going to go into a practice time, and I'm just going to practice. I'll likely make mistakes. I'll stop. I'll redo things, and I'll add some commentary along the way. But hopefully, what I'm going to do now is demonstrate the exercises that I outlined in lesson number one. And this can be now a resource that you can use to reference back to and have an idea of what does it look like to practice these things. I anticipate doing many, many lessons and hopefully corresponding practice sessions for those lessons. And what this should enable is over time creating building blocks that you can take and construct your own practice routine, because there's too much to practice all in one sitting. I read an interview with Oscar Peterson, who said that when he was young, he was practicing 16 hours a day. And he spent the mornings on technique and the afternoons on voicings. And then I think in the evenings, maybe learning tunes and practicing improvising or things like that until his mother took him off the piano and sent him to bed. Most of us don't have 16 hours a day to practice, so we need to select the things that we're going to practice and ensure that what we're doing is we're building on a solid foundation. So if you're a beginner, these first exercises of warming up and learning scales are very important. It's going to be difficult for you if you skip past that and go to things that, lesson 3 or 4, which I haven't even filmed yet. But if you go to further additional lessons looking for more complex or fun things to play, without having the foundation, you're going to struggle. And again, I'm speaking mainly from personal experience because I know that my playing suffered, my maturity, my ability to execute musical ideas suffered immensely because I had neglected some of these fundamental principles of practicing. So with that said, let's get into the routine. And first, I don't start with the metronome. I start with this just very mindful warm up where we're just orienting ourselves at the keyboard. We're ensuring that, I'm sitting. It would be nice to have a bench, but this also doubles as more of a workstation. And so I like to even close my eyes and just focus in on relaxing now while I play these notes. Some deep breaths, releasing all the tension. And then we do some of our some patterns. I felt some tension. I'm feeling some tension in my left forearm that I'm not super thrilled about. I'm going to be mindful of that. All right, now let's get into our scales. And I'm going to play slow, 74 beats per minute. What I like to do is start at the very bottom note of the keyboard, the A, and we'll do an A major scale. And I can provide fingerings. I probably won't describe the fingerings, but I'll provide them as a supplement to this, or if I can figure out how to do it, I can put them up on the screen in post-production. So here we go. And I'm going to be playing eighth notes, and I'm going to be going 2 octaves up, contrary motion, like this, then 2 octaves up this, back down, contrary motion, and then 2 octaves down, like we discussed in episode 1. And I'm going to attempt to go chromatically through all of the keys. I messed something up there on the pattern, but nonetheless, we got through it. Okay, so here I had a fingering glitch, and I lost my place. Another fingering glitch. So even now, I've played this so many times, I'm glitching on fingerings. B flat major, in the left hand, the pinky goes on E flat, the fourth finger goes on E flat all the time. And this is what's so tricky about this one, is that in the right hand, the third finger goes on E flat, this note, and then the fourth finger goes on B flat, which isn't hard when you're only going one way, but when you get into contrary motion, then your fingers are hitting those crossovers at different times, and it has to become a muscle memory thing. So, on my second scale, I'm already making mistakes, but that's fine. That's what practicing is about. We go back, we maybe slow it down if we have to. If I can't get through it this time, I might slow it down so that I can really think through it, because you don't want to be practicing the wrong thing. You can't be reinforcing bad fingering. So touch and go on that one, but we got through it reasonably well. B. missed a note there, but that's okay. C is nice because when you're going in contrary motion, you're crossing over the same finger in the right hand and the left hand. So 3 and then 4, 3, 4. They hit at the same time, so it feels symmetrical. These keys where there's a lot, like where you're basically playing all black notes, all the black notes are also a little bit easier because the shape kind of clues you into the fingering. And you get to a series of those 3 black notes. You're going to have to use your 4th finger. They're on the way down with my right hand. Now D is similar to C. In terms of the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern. Had a bit of a glitch there. Normally I might go back and redo that. For now, I'm not going to. One of the things I'm trying to focus on here too is a consistent volume, and it can be difficult because with the crossing over, you can get this effect where after a crossover, the next note comes out too loud. So you can almost hear this ba-do, ba-do, you know. And what we want is to not be able to detect that there's any crossover. So we're trying to control the volume of every note so that it's the same, regardless of what finger is playing the note. And there I glitched. In A flat, the fourth finger goes on the B flat. In the right hand, anyways. It goes up, yeah. And there we're done. We've played all 12 keys. Not perfectly, but that's the point of practicing. You do it every day. I still do this or version of this every day. Maybe I'll add try different types of scales like melodic minors and things like that, sixth diminished scales. But I'm playing scales every day as part of this warm up, as part of this initial practice phase. Now, the next thing we talked about, I do want to address one thing though, which is the tempo or the speed at which I'm playing these scales. It can be tempting to rely on muscle memory or mechanics to execute these scales before you have mastered them at a level where you can play it very slowly and methodically. And so what I mean by that, is relying on, if I tried to play these scales at a double tempo and maybe in a key that's not as straightforward as C, we just ended on A flat. So if I tried to play the A flat scale a lot faster than I just did, I may end up being able to play it correctly, but not consistently correctly, because I'm relying on an imperfect muscle memory. So if I tried to go, say that fast, well, maybe I'd be able to do it, but it wouldn't be something I could count on. It wouldn't be something I could rely on in a performance. So what my approach is, I'm playing these slower than I normally practice them, so that I can demonstrate. But I incrementally increase the tempo. So maybe next time I practice, I'll move it up by a few beats per minute. And again, this is a long process. And if you don't have the mindset that you're going to enjoy the process and that you're just going to be happy with being able to play something as perfectly as you can, from a tempo, from a technical execution, from staying relaxed, from the volume, the consistency of the notes, and just master it at the slowest tempo necessary for you to play it perfectly, and from there increase the speed, you're going to again be reinforcing the right things and making the right muscle brain neurological connections to rely on it when it comes time to play at those faster tempos. Okay, now the next thing that I showed was this notion of going up the major scale in playing 4-note chords all the way up, then playing the inversions. And again, it's easy in C, but boy, when you get into other keys, you have to start really thinking, because these are not familiar. If you've never played piano before, obviously they're not familiar shapes. But if you're sort of an intermediate player, haven't been exposed to maybe more advanced harmonic concepts like seventh chords and these kind of inversions, you are going to have to take this really slow. And then we would go into the drop 2 version of that. So this is the root position in drop 2, and so on and so forth. So let's do a few keys of this and see how it goes. I'm going to go even slower. Actually, maybe I'll keep it at 74. We'll just see how this goes, but I'm going to probably stick with even quarter notes. Or even half notes. Because now I'm really wanting to... Now, okay, I've just chosen the key of F. You want to be aware of what chords you're playing. Once again, this isn't a race. The sounds and the shapes should just be getting into your fingers. Messed that up already. So now here's the thing. One of the things that clues that helps me is you have to focus on this. And I was talking, so I was distracted. But when I go to first inversion, that means the root's on the top. And if I ever forget, if I lose my place on what note am I playing, or what chord am I playing, I can use that as a reference to know that, okay, I'm on the E minor 7 flat 5 chord, and now we're back to the root. Because I'm looking at what note is my top finger playing: D minor 7, C7, B flat major 7, A minor 7, G minor 7, F major 7, second inversion. Now the F, well, in this case, I could just look at my left hand, because it's always playing the root. But these are different ways to keep yourself oriented. And you might be thinking, this is not sounding practical because it's so slow. But the point is, you can't play it fast until you actually know how to play it slow. So then the last one. Mistake there. Then we do our drop 2s. This is the one where if you lose track of the root, these are such unfamiliar shapes that it's easy to get lost and forget what chord you're playing. Because my left hand's not playing the root anymore. And it's like, whoa, wait, what chord am I on? See, in this case, it's the top note that defines the chord. So C7, D minor 7, E minor 7 flat 5, F major 7. can do our so that would get us through the key of F. Let's keep going. B flat. Yeah. Glitch there, right? First inversion. Is that first inversion? It's not. This is first inversion. Thought something was wrong there. I'll come down here. Play it a little bit more close together. Second inversion. I'm not being very accurate with my left hand fingerings. I could pay more attention to that. Once again, I don't want to practice something improperly, but I will say that playing this exact thing in terms of a scale is very rare. It's not going to happen that often. So I'm not trying to master how to play this as a scale. Forgot what key I was in. I was confused. That is so interesting. For a second I glitched and I thought I was back in F because on this drop 2 voicing of the B flat major 7 in root position, the F comes down to the bottom, and then all of a sudden my brain was thinking, hey, that's the root of the chord, but it's not. So I forgot what key I was in for a second, probably because I was also talking. So now let's go to first inversion. Second inversion. This is a nice range to play it in. Some of them are more, you can hear that these sound more familiar. This second inversion drop 2 voicing is definitely a sound you hear in pop music. You know, there's lots of songs that have that particular way of voicing a major 7th chord. And then finally, we can do our whoa, okay, so obviously glitch is here too. There it is, that's the glitch. Forgetting that I have to get onto the beat. Oh. Okay, so I wouldn't leave this until I feel like I can actually play it. I can get up, but now what about back down? This was the only part where I had a bit of a hesitation. Okay, so that's B flat. Oops. producer again? Yeah. So the A flat major 7 is the one that was getting me. So I would probably go try and start from here. Maybe come down again. Almost had a disaster there. So once again, this is actually a matter of me losing focus, thinking about other things. Okay, so that's E flat. I'll stop the metronome here. So, okay, how many keys did we get through? I think I did C, F, B flat, and E flat, 4 keys. You may not have time to do all 12 in a single sitting. And that's okay. One approach that I would use or have used is between the major scales and then other things that are going to come up, to just focus on a single key for an entire practice session. So I wouldn't do all 12 major scales even as part of the warm-up. I always start with the finger exercises, the independence and the strength building and the relaxing and all that stuff. But then I might just go into A flat, let's say, work on the major scale, do some arpeggios, which we'll get to in another lesson. And then these voicing exercises, and then anything else relevant to that key, because there's a lot to cover. We get into different types of techniques for playing and improvising and jazz and stylistic stuff. And if you try to tackle every single key and every single concept and every single key every single time you practice, you will need 16 hours a day, and that's not feasible. So I hope this was a good demonstration that gave you an idea of how to approach the material that I presented in lesson 1. And I realize I haven't talked about how to read music or how any of this would look on a musical staff, and I know that would be helpful. But what I'm advocating for is not to do away with that. It's something I'm very, very poor at. I can't really read music very well. And I've had to learn to rely on my ear, and I think there's benefits to that, but there's also downfalls. But what I'm trying to do is teach an approach that gets you, especially if you're someone that hasn't ever really approached the piano from an improvisation standpoint. I think there's a connection that needs to happen where you pull yourself away from that printed page and you stop relying on that, and you actually focus on the shape of the notes on the keyboard and what your ears are hearing. And so these exercises, like especially that last one, I wouldn't even want to necessarily give you the sheet music for that, because I think it's more important to feel your way through the key signature, knowing that there's a pattern here. And if you know the notes of the scale from practicing it in a scale format, then you'll know how to build, for instance, that last exercise without needing the sheet music. And to me, that's a far more effective way of internalizing these concepts. So that's why I'm not necessarily going to spend time writing this out or putting a lot of sheet music up in probably most of these lessons, because I want it to be more of an intuitive process and more of a process that frees you from, feeling like you can't really come to the piano and play unless you have music in front of you. I've met a lot of people that feel that, and they don't really know how to get away from that. And so these types of concepts should help give you a level of freedom at the instrument that, just some of those nice voicings that we did in, for instance, in F, and we were going up the scale like this. Oh, but when we got to the second inversion with a drop 2 voicing, what if you played the root down here and you just kind of and went back and forth? I'm just totally improvising now. Because you're seeing that, hey, these two notes that go together sound really nice. And so what if I played them up an octave? Or what if I played them not together but in different ways? So you could, that's not something you necessarily need to see on a page. It's something that you could intuitively figure out simply by starting with that and then realizing, I mean, if you can't make the 10th, that's a big stretch. You could play it like this, just play the F again, and then just going back and forth between the first two chords of that scale. That's really nice. And then you could say, well, what if that just kept going? A very basic and simple demonstration, but maybe you've never sat down and just played from your creative mind before. And here's a way that is going to give you access to sounds and colors and textures that you can start painting with, you know, like the major scale harmony stuff that we've been talking about. There's lots there, and it's not boring. I mean, the major scale is full of possibilities, and uh, you know, practicing the scale every day and never understanding how that scale turns into these chords, and never understanding how these chords can be played in different ways, right, with the notes in different orders, uh, totally limits you. And so even though this is only lesson one, there's kind of a lifetime of stuff to be explored here, and that's the beauty of it. So I hope this inspires you, and I hope that it proves helpful. Thank you.